Fire bad. Chinwag good. Fire bad, Chinwag good.
You're a Boris Karloff fan, aren't you?
Huge Boris Karloff fan.
You love Frankenstein.
I do. I love Frankenstein. Frankenstein's amazing in Frankenstein. And he was a great actor, amazing actor.
Oh, welcome to the Chinwag, though.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, welcome to the Chinwag. Welcome to the Boris Karloff, the roast of Boris Karloff we're going to do.
Was he big, like the Frankenstein character, or was that all movie magic?
Oh, it was huge. Oh, no, I think he was pretty big, and then I think they put him in shoes that made him even bigger. I think he was a tall guy.
He looks gigantic.
He does look gigantic. He was a tall guy, I think, and then they put him in shoes that made him bigger. And that was the thing that really, he'd been around a long time acting in various things, and that like really was the thing that made him a big star, which is amazing to think of now, somebody becoming a big star completely hidden in makeup, like it would never happen.
Well, I don't know. Is that true? Are there any recent movies, like in the last couple decades, where somebody became a star?
Somebody became a star from being covered in makeup like that? I don't think so.
No, I guess you're right.
No, I just don't think it's the kind of thing that would happen now. But he was an amazing actor. He really is one of my favorite actors. And when I say that, sometimes people kind of like, go like, oh, come on. And I'm like, no,
you can't be serious, but
no, and I'm like, no. He was a great actor. He really was, like, truly great. And it's like what he does in Frankenstein's incredible. But I mean, he's covered in makeup that was primitive, that stuff he was wearing. And it's like, I mean, he could barely move and stuff. And what he expresses in that is amazing. I mean, what's coming through in that is incredible. And he had he was endlessly fat. You just couldn't take your eyes off of him. I mean, it's like ever and anything he ever did. And he just was magnetic.
He had a really interesting look too. Like his face, with no makeup, his face was really intriguing. Like
he was incredible looking.
Who draws, he's fun to draw,
Totally. And he had an incredible voice, and he had that unbelievably fascinating sort of persona that was like real movie star in that classical sense of a movie star. Like, John Wayne, who I think is amazing. And it's like everything's just a variation on John Wayne's persona, but it's a pretty compelling persona. It's pretty fascinating to watch.
Interesting.
And same thing sort of in some ways with Boris Karloff. He's clearly having fun.
Yeah,
and it's fun. True. It's fun to watch him. You know what I mean? It's just, he's so fucking great. One of my favorite things, and then I'll get off of this, but is have you ever seen that movie, The Black Cat?
I know of this movie, but I don't think I've seen this movie. No,
it's great, and it's great too because it's him and Bela Lugosi.
Oh, that's right. I've heard this.
And Bela Lugosi actually plays like the good guy in it, sort of.
Rare.
And Karloff plays like the really bad guy, and it's got one of my favorite movie lines in it. And it's at one point he's got Bela Lugosi sort of trapped in the house, and he can't get out, and there's no way. And Bela Lugosi is like trying to think of how do I get out of here, and he's been trying to sort of like, it's this mad scientist. He has this house, and he's kind of trapped everybody in the house, and he's crazy, and he's got his dead wife reanimated in the basement and all kinds of fucked up shit. And it's all like there's all the kind of necrophilia shit suggested. It's all fucked up. And so he's got Bela Lugosi trapped in the house, and Bela Lugosi planning on how to get out of the house. And at some point he's sitting there, and the servant walks past, and Boris Karloff says to the servant, "What about the phones? Was that the phone ringing?" And the servant goes, "No, the phone is dead," like that. And he turns to Bela Lugosi very slowly, and he goes, "Do you hear that, Vitus? The phone is dead. Even the phone is dead." It's one of my favorite lines. Even the phone is dead. It's like, and I've always wanted to like write a novel, mystery novel or a horror novel, and call it "Even the Phone is Dead."
That's great.
This is such a great line.
I like your delivery. You really got the feel. Yeah, I think so.
Do I have Karloff down? I don't know.
He's got a kind of a sing-songy voice that ends like way in the baritone kind of,
And he had a little bit of a weird lisp. He was like, "Even the phone is dead." Like that. I can't really do him. But he was amazing.
Yeah, and then every subsequent cartoon version of him like amplifies like the speech pattern.
Like that. All that but he's one of those guys where he was just leaning into his persona too.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And one other thing, if you ever see, there's a great, I think it was maybe not his last movie, but close to us, because I think the last movies he made were a bunch of kind of like quickie B, like Z grade, like Mexican horror movies and stuff like that, where he kind of got flown down, and I don't think he was well. But he did a movie called Targets, which if you've never seen that, is for all our listeners, Targets is a great movie. And it's one of his last, it's Peter Bogdanovich's first movie, the great director.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah, and it's a great movie. Anyway.
You know, I think at this point in your career, you've achieved a certain level of status, and I think you should think about maybe just recreating all of the great, like, you know, from your childhood, the movies that really meant a lot to you. Wouldn't it be fun to like remake some of them?
Well, to remake those things would be great, but that's an interesting idea. Maybe I could do some kind of one-man show on stage,
where
I do a bunch of those guys. But I don't know that I'm not a very good mimic. You got to be, I'm not a great mimic. And there are people who are uncanny mimics. There are actors who, and I'm always kind of, occasionally I can sort of mimic somebody, but there's people who can, I don't think I'm a great mimic.
It's true. People can like get every aspect of the voice and it seems like it's a superpower almost.
It is, isn't it? It's almost like, what is going on? And I wonder if there's some kind of different, it'd be interesting if there's some sort of different brain chemistry or some kind of different brain function in those people. You think so?
Yeah, because you're recording these micro expressions and shit. It's incredible.
It's really weird, like people who are good at that. And it's like, and it seems like it's beyond just mere talent or something. I mean, I don't know. And sometimes I find mimics, people who are really good mimics, are very peculiar people. They're kind of strange cats. I don't know. That's an interesting idea. I wonder if there's any research about like mimicry like that, like who can mimic well.
I got to think there is, because all human beings have like mirror neurons, and you can see somebody and feel what they're feeling a little bit because the mirror neurons were trained up from when you were a baby. And I just wonder if there were like little babies and kids that somehow tracked like every vocal change and facial expression much more intensely than the average schmo.
And that's interesting that it's like hyperactive, like mirroring ability. Because like primates and stuff, you know, the orangutans would mirror human behavior, and children.
If you stick your tongue out to an ape, they'll stick their tongue out. It's crazy.
And children are learning from this. So maybe there's a person who has a hyperactive ability to do that. I mean, there's frequently a kind of, I mean, like I know there's a kind of trope in movies that like ventriloquists and stuff are like deeply damaged human beings. That it's like, so that there's some sense that it's like that maybe a mimic is somebody who's psychically so damaged that they're picking up on everybody's ability and as a way to kind of function in the world, they're able to really fit in with everybody by imitating them like crazy.
That's Rich Little for you. That's
Rich is still alive? Still alive, Rich Little?
I don't know.
Jesus. Well, this has been an interesting chat so far.
Yes. It's only going to get better.
It only is going to get a lot better. And we have a very special guest today. But what is it, what we usually say, Steve, at the top of our little jaunt here?
Well, we do need to thank our wonderful community for all the support they give us and the letters and the ranking and reviewing. But also we want to encourage you to keep going and push the Chinwag on your friends mercilessly.
Mercilessly proselytize your friends, in other words. Just tie them to a chair and make them listen to this. No, we definitely, it's a challenge. We want you just spread it wider. We want more people. I keep saying this. I want an army behind me of people when I take over the planet.
When you take over the country.
When I take over the planet.
When you start running for office.
Exactly. I got to run for office. I'm fine. So but send us out. Send out this episode or
share this episode or anything.
Yeah, send it out there. I mean, and get it out in the world some more, because it's.
And thanks for the letters and stuff too. We love that stuff. Keep them coming.
Yeah, and questions and comments and things. They're amazing. And we always delve into the Chinwag mailbag and come up with a lot of good stuff. And rate and review us as well, if you haven't already. 5 stars is always appreciated. 5.
Very much so, yeah.
Yes, no less than 5. Just 5. If you're going to give us less than 5, don't bother. So, yeah. All right. Moving along to fascinating.
This is a fascinating guy, and
this is a super interesting guy.
I think a lot of our fans will know who this is, But the youngsters also do a little research, and you will love this material: the music, the art, everything.
Yeah, I think you'll turning on people who don't know this guy will be great. But to everybody who does, I think you'd be very excited. He's a very talented artist and musician, and co-founder of the seminal new wave art punk band DEVO. DEVO, so good. He's also scored hundreds of films and TV shows, from the Royal Tenenbaums to Rushmore, Pee-wee's Playhouse, the Lego Movie, and even Tiger King. I didn't know he did Tiger King. That's amazing. That's amazing. He's amazing. He's just released a new art book called Apotropaic Beatnik Graffiti, which is a sampling of his vast collection of, quote, mail art, unquote, M-A-I-L, not M-A-L-E,
yes,
M-A-I-L, mail art as in the postal system, which he began collecting in 1969.
Amazing.
And you've got to check it out. It's a beautiful book. It's a beautifully made book.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of really...
It's like a coffee table book, but it's even like nicer than most coffee table books.
Beautiful. It's a beautifully made... The book itself is kind of a work of art. We're super thrilled to have him joining us. Please welcome Mark Mothersbaugh to the Chinwag. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah? It's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks, man.
Oh,
it's awesome.
I'm tickled pink.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. It's funny. I was just going to relay to you just a memory of mine that I just felt like I needed, because it's a super vivid memory of mine. When I was 11 years old, and I must have either had a babysitter who was extremely lax, and we had a lot of those as a child, because I saw you and the band DEVO appear on Saturday Night Live in 1978. And was that the first appearance you had all made on television?
I think it was. We did radio stuff, but we were only college radio, and then some of the kind of cooler, hipper stations like K-Rock and stuff like that played us. So we were, we made a single ourselves. We pressed 1,000 singles in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we sat on couches and folded the cover together ourselves. And we sent one to John and Danny. And they saw it, and they liked it. And so that was the first step towards something happening, yeah.
Well, it imprinted itself in my brain. I have a couple of really vivid memories. I remember seeing the movie Carnival of Souls when I was 4. I remember seeing the Twilight Zone episode with Burgess Meredith where he breaks his glasses and he can't read all the books he wants to read after the world has been destroyed. And I have a vivid memory of that, of you guys
DEVO
appearing. And they feel sort of the same to me, because it was kind of uncanny, your appearance, and I was scared by it. I found it uncanny. You seem pleased. It felt slightly monstrous and freaky to me as a kid, and that's why I think it's burned into my memory in the same way that like Creature Feature and a lot of that stuff is burned into my memory. And I think a lot of it was the way you guys were moving was part of it, was the kind of mechanical movement.
Yeah.
And the weird uniformity of the clothing and stuff like that.
Well, did you get that response a lot, Mark? Were people frightened by DEVO?
Well, we were from an industrial city, Akron, Ohio, and we rehearsed in a basement that was small enough that small up and down and little jerky movements were about all we could do without crashing into the walls. So people, they want to see other things, and so that was half the fun.
I'm basically like the same age as Paul, and I remember also being frightened by you guys in a good way. And I remember thinking, like, there was at the same time there was all this kind of hair metal and like the pop music, and there was disco. And you guys were, and all these sort of metal guys were trying to be scary, but you guys had like these crazy red spots on your heads, and you were more frightening than the stuff that was posing as frightening. And I wonder why that is. It was just so strange.
You were 10 times more frightening than Kiss ever could have been to me.
Right.
Kiss was not scary. You guys like scared me. You jarred me. It was something uncanny. It was uncanny.
Well, I don't think it was actually trying to scare you. We were just, I just remember thinking in 1975, well, rock and roll's over. I mean, it's like Rolling Stones put out the best rock song ever, Satisfaction, in 1964. And so we did a cover in 74. We thought, well, we got to update it. For, now that rock and roll's over, we have to update, that song, because that was a great song. And I think we were inspired by art movements from what's now 100 years ago, like futurists and Bauhaus and Dadaists and surrealists.
All of which was kind of scary, that stuff. I mean, it's all kind of unconscious stuff. I mean, and the unconscious can be kind of scary, it seems like, no?
If you're trying to make people feel comfortable, I guess that's another. I don't think we were after that necessarily. We kind of were formed partially because of the shootings at Kent State. In 1970.
You went to Kent State, right?
I went to Kent State, yeah, and I met Jerry there. He was a grad student, and I was a freshman, sophomore, and I was posting things. Like, I was a graffiti artist before there was a name for it, and I was putting stuff up, and he said, are you the guy putting up pictures of astronauts holding potatoes standing on the moon around campus? And I go, yeah, what of it? And he goes, what do potatoes mean to you? And then we got into a discussion about potatoes, but then the shootings happened, and it kind of changed our take on things. And so we went to school, that year, it's like, I thought, I don't want to go to Vietnam. I can't think of one Vietnamese person I want to kill, I couldn't, there was nobody I wanted to shoot or blow up just because they were whatever a communist is. I didn't think that was enough reason that we should be dropping bombs on you. And so I felt like we were empowered when we were at Kent, and we protested and did marches. And then the governor of Ohio just got tired of it. And he said, okay, load the guns. And so, the third day, they started shooting people. And before that, there was all this music that was like Dylan and, people that were like somewhere between folk and rock that had protest and political music and even, stuff like, what are we fighting for?
Is that Country Joe or something?
Yeah, Country Joe. And then they shut down our school in May 4th for the shootings. And then when they opened it up again in September, it was all different. Like before that, there was this thing where there was this excitement and there was this, you felt like you were relevant and you had something to say and somebody cared about what you said. Right. And it was all different after that. And music had changed. And like you said, it was heavy metal hair bands. It was like their politics were misogynistic, we're conspicuous consumers, and we're proud of it. We're proud of it. That's what we are. And then the other music that came out was disco. And disco had all these great, cool new synth sounds, but we kind of thought of it as like disco was like a pretty girl with no brain. It was like it was like something great about the beats and things, but it just really, they had nothing to say.
It sounds like it emptied everything out in some weird way. That event just kind of emptied everything out. That it was just like, that's really, wow.
And bands started, they started, like punk was kind of reactionary to that. And there was some punk that was smart, but there was most of it was just angry and stupid on purpose, Yeah. And they were just, nihilistic and anarchistic. And we weren't really that. We were saying humans are the unnatural species. We were like, we're the one species on this planet that's out of touch with nature, and we're kind of doing the planet a disservice. And so we were just talking about, we use that as a way to talk about that kind of stuff. And it kind of got a little bit buried when we signed with a record label, because before that we were much more really out there, as artists. It was somewhere like a Captain Beefheart meets Sun Ra.
It was amazing. Yeah, amazing.
And even if you watch our first film, The Truth About DEVOlution, it's got a song called Jocko Homo in it, and you listen to that. The drums, it was my younger brother, Jim, playing drums at the time, and he invented one of the first electronic drum kits. And so he was making sounds. If you listen to that film, the sounds of the drums are kind of really wild, and they're not like, and after that, we kind of thought, people are paying us to quit. So quit playing after like 15 or 30 minutes. So we thought, what?
Please stop.
How do you get your how do you get your information across to people? How do you talk to people without them just going like that?
Yeah.
And I remember I was painting an apartment for a day job, and I was listening to this Pachelbel's Canon, on the radio, and it's beautiful music. It's one of the most beautiful pieces. La, 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 la. And, I'm painting the ceiling, and it starts going, hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special Lord. And I'm like, wow. We realize Madison Avenue is how you change things in this country.
Sure.
That's how subversion works much better than rebellion. Rebellion, they just they get tired of you and they go boom and you're gone, or they lock you up,
And subversion seems to have a lot of humor in it too. I mean, even though you're saying there, it's like humor seems like a really effective weapon or effective means of, right? I mean, there's humor and sort of parody and stuff like that, and kind of satire in it too.
I always thought that that's what was lacking in punk music. You guys had punk energy, but you also had and obviously you were like deep into surrealism and this kind of stuff. So you were kind of intellectuals in a way, but you also like could really play. Like the DEVO, you guys sounded really together. Like the band was tight.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And punk didn't have that. It just was too angry to just get the chords right, and get the melodies right.
And it wasn't very funny either, although some of it was funny.
Yeah.
Some of it could be, some of it was.
Some of it was really good. The Ramones, like beat on the brat. I mean, they were like pretty funny. And Sex Pistols, I thought they were amazing. I have nothing bad to say about the Sex Pistols.
But also there's a kind of weird sense of humor to both of those groups, and I don't quite know what it is. It's not like they're making fun of themselves. It's not like they're kidding around, but there's a humor to it that seemed really important to that stuff. And humor seems like a really good delivery system for all that kind of stuff.
After that record that film that I'm talking about, The Truth About DEVOlution, after that, we came out to Hollywood and we changed our sound. We kind of left behind some of the Captain Beefheart slow-mo bluesy kind of stuff, and we kind of sped things up, and we got more succinct and we got more compact, and we actually got a record deal, which was kind of a miracle in a way, and then we did just like everybody else. Spinal Tap. Every band is Spinal Tap. No matter who you are. Every single band. It's like
you ride the wave.
I guess that's true. Yeah, you got to quit while you're ahead. But when are you going to do that? Yeah, I guess you can't. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
But we I have a whole other picture on DEVO and your work because Paul and I have spent a lot of time with your new book, which is amazing. And
thanks.
Yeah, I get a sense from your book that it's the Apotropaic Beatnik Graffiti. It's awesome.
Yes.
And
it's beautiful.
I get to understand like that there is so much interest in surrealism and Dada in the visual work. And even like when you're talking about like a spaceman with a potato, that just sounds awesome to me, back on Kent State. So I sort of understand DEVO a little better because it seems like your whole career has been kind of interested in like the unconscious a little bit. Is that fair to say? Like, it's sort of irrational.
I mean, you can't say career because I've had a day job for about close to 40 years where I actually write music that orchestras play and it fits into films,
Right.
That's right. And even kid shows, right?
Yeah, kid shows. Yeah. I get to be an art teacher on a kid's show. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's the Yo Gabba Gabba one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
This book that you mentioned, all of the Apotropaic Beatnik Graffiti that's in it, there's like 500 pages of that. Some of it's 10 years old. I did it on card stock. And it was easy because it was cheap. I started doing it in the late 60s and it was mail art.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an idea that started like 50 years before that in Europe, you know, with these different art movements. And there was no computers back then. So that's how you could exchange stuff. And I started mailing stuff out. And then after a while, I realized that those cards, they had lyrics, costume ideas, album cover artwork, and stuff like that. And so what happened is about 8 or 9 years ago, I got talked into doing a retrospective visual arts show that traveled around museums around the country. And it had about 3,000 pieces of art in it. And this guy who was the curator of the show, Adam Lerner, he talked me into showing this artwork that you saw in this book. And I'm like, oh, no. This is just for me. I do these because they're uncensored. It's like when I do work with DEVO or when I did work with, you know, Pee-wee's Playhouse or Wes Anderson or whatever I was working on, you know, it's like I always had to think about them, you know, because you're a collaborator. You know, you're a collaborator when you're scoring a film, you know. And these were like something that were just
purely yours.
Me, I could be, I had no censorship whatsoever. And I never thought of this stuff being in the public eye. And, you know, I never thought of that showing up and people seeing it. And this guy talked me into it. And I just remember walking into a room at a museum in Denver when we were first setting up the first show. And there were 300 of these books laid out.
One thing, can I just describe for the listeners sort of what they're looking at? Because, and this could be a naive interpretation of it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like every page has the same central eye image, and then you've basically improvised images and word text all around it in a kind of stream of consciousness fashion. So it's really personal and idiosyncratic, but then when I look at it, it triggers shit in me too. Like I see, you know,
oh wow,
it sparks.
That's great.
And the sort of the sheer mass of all these eyeballs looking at you is alone. That alone is super jarring and uncanny feeling. Totally.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. The eye is the central image. The eye. And I'm interested to talk about that. Because, I mean, now, the actual eye that you just held up, too, which is the eye that's in all these photographs.
Yes.
And I might be wrong about this. Is that actually a sort of plaster eye that you found that is actually a talisman to ward off the evil eye?
Yeah, I loved going into every kind of religious bookstore you could find because I like all the different takes on why we are here. But I really like the way Christians, like in the 30s, had a total reactionary thing to Darwin and evolution. And they started putting out all these articles and comic books and things making fun of evolution. And I think the first time the word DEVOlution was written was in 1933. This reverend from Ohio had a little pamphlet that a school teacher of mine found and gave it to me, called Jocko Homo, Heaven-Bound King of Earth. And you open up the first page, and there's like a staircase, and it has all of man's major sins, you know, World War I, World War II.
Oh, man, that sounds great.
Incest, rape, you know, murder, you know, all these different things up the and it's a devil smiling, and he's pointing up the staircase, and it says DEVOlution on his chest.
Oh, that's where you guys got the name?
Actually, Jerry found this book. Jerry and Bob Lewis, another one of the guys that we worked with, they found this book, like in a cult store or something, called The Beginning Was the End, How Man Came into Being Through Cannibalism. And it was there was a
amazing.
A Yugoslavian anthropologist, you know, like doing a study of all the Cro-Magnon and early Homo sapien artifacts that were in Europe, kept seeing holes in the front of the head. And he came up with this theory that when Homo sapiens entered Europe, they attacked all of the Cro-Magnons and ate them and sucked their brains out of the skull through these holes.
That also could have been tree panning. You know, the tree panning, which is where you drill. That could have been the sort of drilling the hole in your skull to release sort of. I think that's my opinion about that, is that they were drilling the holes in there to release spirits.
Also big cats too. Big cats will get you between the eyes and carry your body up a tree. It's very common.
Oh, interesting.
But anyway, it is DEVOlution. Yeah, please go
on. So that's the book where this guy just went on and on about DEVOlution. And Jerry and Bob just sat there and cut the letters off of DEVOlution till it came down to DEVO. And we love DEVO.
And it's the notion of DEVOlution in that context with this religious book is that Satan has sort of set us on the wrong path. That we're actually we're moving away from heaven or something and on a sort of downward trajectory. And in fact, we're turning back into sort of beasts because the devil has sort of set us on that path. Is that the idea?
Well,
in the context of that.
Yeah. Well, there's been a tug of war between science and religion ever since science showed up. Religion didn't look at science as something beneficial, or they didn't realize that each of them have part of the brain. They each have a different part of the brain. It's like, I know scientists that just totally feel like there's nothing about religion that's useful. But I think it's kind of, both of them represent like humans trying to figure out why we are here, and they're just trying to figure it out. And I mean, of course, they also are both perverse, Yeah,
and destructive in some ways. They can be. They potentially,
Both of them are currently very destructive. Science trumped religion with the A-bomb, because it seems like our politicians are getting crazier and less, dependable.
Because they kind of have to, because that's the only response you can make to the atom bomb, basically. I mean, there's not much of an answer to the atom bomb except to get crazier in some ways, maybe. Because what the hell do you say in response to the hydrogen bomb except, just get crazier with everything else, I suppose. Because there's no worthy answer.
That said, I think things like AI, although it's in its infant stage, AI is something that is going to take humans at a faster rate than we ever thought through religion or evolution or science. I think AI is like going to move things up really fast, and we're going to, like, a lot of our things that we think are really important about humans now are maybe just the caveman part that we're going to let go of, and we're doing something else. Maybe we're going to become part of the universe.
Good heavens. That was a wide-ranging chinwag.
Yeah. DEVOlution.
DEVOlution, and kind of a fascinating, like, thumbnail history of music from kind of the late 60s.
Yeah.
We got a really interesting little tour of sort of music there for a bit, too. The kind of genesis of DEVO was really interesting.
Yeah, the genesis of DEVO, I would have never thought was connected to the Kent State shootings. That's crazy.
All right. Well, that was terrific. Thank you for being here, folks. In just a few short days, we'll have a bonus wag for you. So please be sure to check that out. And until then, Steve?
Well, I would say the usual.
Yeah.
Wag on, weirdos.
Wag on, weirdos. Wag on, my friend.
Chinwag is a production of Treefort Media and Touchy Feely Films. Hosted and executive produced by Paul Giamatti and Stephen Asma. Executive producers for Treefort are Kelly Garner and Lisa Ammerman. Dan Carey is executive producer for Touchy Feely. Our series producer is Rachel Whitley Bernstein. Original theme music by Luke Topp, with additional music by Via Mardot. Oscar Guido is our executive in charge of production. Tom Monahan is head of audio for Treefort. Audio production supervision by Jared Brom and Matt Dyson. Editing and mixing by Jeff Neal. Animation created by Alex Sokol. Research assistance by Aidan Brooks. Lastly, for more information, go to chinwagpod.fm and find us on Instagram or TikTok at chinwagpod or on Twitter at chinwag_pod.